January 14, 1944. The Korsun Pocket, Ukraine. The temperature was 20 degrees below zero. The air didn't just feel cold. It felt solid, like a wall of invisible glass that cracked every time you inhaled. Inside T-34 number 203, it was hotter than hell. Sergeant Ivan Korolyov wiped a mixture of sweat and engine grease from his eyes. He wasn't the commander of this tank. He wasn't the gunner. He was the driver-mechanic. In the hierarchy of the Red Army, he was just the guy who shifted gears. But in the reality of war, Ivan was the heart of the machine. "Ivan, stop playing with the fuel mix," Lieutenant Volkov shouted from the commander's cupola above. "We are holding up the column." Ivan ignored him. He was listening to the engine. The massive V2 diesel engine behind him was a 500-horsepower beast. But in this weather, it was asthmatic. The fuel lines were clogging with gelled diesel. The oil was like tar. Ivan adjusted a valve he had installed himself, an unauthorized bypass he had scavenged from a downed Messerschmitt fighter plane. He twisted it. The engine roared, the pitch rising from a low grumble to a high-pitched scream. "She's breathing now, Lieutenant," Ivan shouted back over the intercom. "You're going to blow the pistons, you idiot," Volkov yelled. "Just drive." Ivan shifted into second gear. The T-34 lurched forward, its wide tracks biting into the frozen mud. Ivan was different from other drivers. Before the war, he hadn't been a tractor driver or a factory worker. He had been a test driver for the Gorky automobile plant. He understood torque, suspension, and center of gravity in a way that military manuals didn't teach. He treated the 30-ton tank not like a fortress, but like a race car. And today, he would need every ounce of that speed. The Death Valley. The mission was simple. Escort a convoy of supply trucks through the Ravine of Tears, a narrow, winding valley flanked by steep, icy cliffs. It was a choke point, perfect kill zone. There were 3 T-34s in the escort. Ivan's tank, the Red Fist, was in the lead. As they entered the ravine, the shadows lengthened. The pine trees on the ridge stood like silent sentinels. "I don't like this," the gunner, Sasha, whispered over the comms. "It's too quiet." "Cut the chatter," Volkov ordered. Eyes on the ridge. Ivan gripped the steering levers. He felt the vibration of the ground through the steel floor. Something was wrong. The ground was trembling. Not from his engine. From something heavier. Thump, thump, thump. It was a rhythmic, metallic heartbeat. "Contact front," Ivan screamed, slamming on the brakes. In the mist ahead, a shape materialized. It was angular, boxy, and terrifyingly massive. It was painted white to match the snow, but the long barrel of its 88mm gun was black as death. "Tiger Eye. Tiger. 12 o'clock," Volkov screamed. "Driver, reverse. Reverse." Ivan threw the levers back. The gears ground together. Boom! The Tiger fired. The sound was like the sky cracking open. The shell missed Ivan's tank by inches, the shockwave rocking them violently. It flew past them and hit the T-34 directly behind them. There was a sickening metallic crunch, followed by an explosion. Ivan watched in his periscope as his comrade's tank turned into a pillar of fire. "Ambush!" Volkov was panicking. "Where are they? Where is the second one?" Boom! From the rear, another explosion lit up the ravine. The third T-34, the rear guard, had just been decapitated. This turret flew 20 feet into the air. Ivan realized the trap instantly. They weren't fighting one Tiger. They were fighting 3. One in front, one behind, and one. Ivan looked up at the steep, icy ridge to his right. There, perched on a cliff edge that should have been impossible for a heavy tank to reach, was the third Tiger. It was looking down at them like a wolf looking into a pit. They were boxed in. The supply trucks were burning. The other tanks were dead. It was just the Red Fist versus 3 of Hitler's deadliest machines. The physics of fear. "We surrender," Volkov cried out, his voice cracking. "Open the hatch. Wave the white flag." "No," Sasha the gunner yelled. "They'll shoot us anyway. These are SS. We can't fight them," Volkov sobbed. The 88 millimeters will go straight through our front plate. We are dead. We are already dead. Ivan sat in his driver's seat. Time seemed to slow down. He looked at the Tiger in front. It was blocking the road, slowly rotating its turret to finish them off. He looked at the Tiger behind. It was advancing through the smoke of the destroyed trucks. He looked at the Tiger on the ridge. It had the high ground. Volkov was right. If they stayed here, they were dead. If they reversed, they were dead. If they charged, they were dead. But Ivan looked at the terrain. To his left was a frozen river. It wasn't a flat river. It was a frozen waterfall. A steep, jagged sheet of ice that dropped 50 feet down into a lower canyon. It was a suicide drop. No tank could go down there without flipping over and crushing the crew. Or could it? Ivan looked at his gauges. The engine temperature was in the red. The bypass valve was trembling. "Lieutenant," Ivan said calmly, "hold on to something." "What?" Volkov stammered. "What are you doing?" "I'm going for a drive." The crazy move. Ivan didn't reverse. He didn't charge the Tiger. He slammed the left steering lever all the way back and floored the accelerator. The T-34 spun in place, its tracks screaming against the frozen ground. He turned the tank 90 degrees, facing directly at the cliff edge, directly at the frozen waterfall. "Ivan!" Sasha screamed. "That's a drop. You'll kill us. Better gravity than the Germans." Ivan gritted his teeth. He slammed the transmission into third gear. He bypassed the governor completely. The engine howled like a banshee. 500 horsepower became 600. The tank leaped forward. The German commander in the lead Tiger paused. He watched through his sights. He expected the Russian tank to charge him. Instead, he watched the T-34 drive straight off the cliff. "Crazy Ivan," the German muttered, lowering his binoculars. "They saved us the cost of a shell." The freefall. For 2 seconds, T-34 number 203 was not a tank. It was an aircraft made of pig iron. They went over the edge. Inside, the crew floated weightless. Tools floated in the air. Volkov was screaming. But Ivan wasn't screaming. He was counting. He knew that if they landed flat, the suspension would snap, and their spines would shatter. He had to land on a slope. The tank hit the ice. Crash. The sound was deafening. The tank didn't stop. It hit the steep, frozen slope of the waterfall at a 45-degree angle. Any other driver would have hit the brakes. If Ivan had hit the brakes, the tank would have lost traction, tumbled, and rolled into a ball of scrap metal. Ivan did the opposite. He hit the gas. He drove down the falling ice. The tracks spun wildly, clawing at the frozen sheet. The tank was effectively surfing down a 50-foot wall of ice, sliding sideways, drifting like a rally car on a frozen lake. Chunks of ice the size of boulders were thrown up by the tracks. The tank shuddered violently, sliding, slipping, but, miraculously, staying upright. They reached the bottom of the canyon in a cloud of snow and steam. The suspension bottomed out with a groan that sounded like the tank was dying. The hull slammed into the frozen riverbed, cracking the ice but not breaking through. They came to a halt. Silence. Are we alive?" Sasha whispered. Volkov was hyperventilating on the floor of the turret. Ivan checked his periscope. They were in the lower canyon. They were alive, but they weren't safe. High above them, on the ridge, the Tiger commander looked down. He saw the tracks in the snow. He saw the T-34 moving at the bottom. He grabbed his radio. "Achtung! The Russian is not dead. He is in the lower sector. Hunt him down." Ivan revved the engine. The fall had knocked something loose. The engine was making a terrible knocking sound. But it was running. "Sasha," Ivan said, his eyes scanning the narrow canyon walls. "Load armor-piercing." "But Ivan," Sasha said, his voice trembling, "we are trapped down here. The Tigers are up there. They have the high ground. They can shoot down at us, but we can't elevate our gun high enough to shoot them." Ivan grinned. It was a cold, terrifying grin. "Who said we are going to shoot them?" Ivan shifted gears. "We are going to make them come to us. And when they do, I'm gonna show them a trick I learned in Gorky. What trick? The drift, Ivan said. He slammed the tank into gear. The red fist roared into the shadows of the canyon, leaving the tigers behind. For now, the hunt had begun, and the Germans had no idea that the prey was about to become the predator. January 14th, 1944. The lower canyon. The canyon floor was a world of white and gray. The frozen river wound through the rocks like a scar. The ice was thick, maybe 3 feet, but under the weight of a 30-ton tank, it groaned and cracked with every movement. Inside T-34 number 203, the crew was silent. Ivan had killed the engine. They were sitting in the shadow of a massive overhanging cliff, invisible from above. "They are coming," Sasha whispered, looking through the periscope. "I can hear them." High above, on the canyon rim, the 2 Tiger tanks were prowling. Their engines growled like distant thunder. But they weren't the immediate threat. The 3rd Tiger, the one that had been blocking the road, had found a path down. It was entering the riverbed a mile upstream. It was coming to flush them out like a ferret in a rabbit hole. "We are trapped," Lieutenant Volkov whimpered. He was huddled in the corner of the turret, clutching his pistol. "If we move, the ones on top see us. If we stay, the one down here kills us." "Lieutenant," Ivan said, his voice surprisingly calm, "get in the loader's seat." "What?" "Sasha needs room to work. You are useless in the cupola. Load the shells." "Do it." Volkov, broken by fear, obeyed. He crawled down. Ivan took a deep breath. He looked at his hands. They were shaking, not from fear, but from the vibration of the idling diesel. "Sasha," Ivan said, "we have one advantage." "What?" "We have a 76mm gun. They have 100mm of frontal armor. We can't scratch them." "The ice," Ivan said. "The Tiger weighs 56 tons. We weigh 30. He is an elephant on skates. We are a dancer." The dance begins. The German Tiger appeared around the bend. It was a terrifying sight. The massive boxy hull, the interlaced road wheels clanking, the long 88mm barrel sniffing the air. The German commander saw them instantly. The T-34 was sitting in the open, engine off. A sitting duck. The Tiger stopped. The turret began to rotate. It was 800 yards away. An easy shot for a Tiger ace. "Start it! Start it!" Sasha screamed. Ivan hit the starter. The V2 engine roared to life, coughing black smoke. But Ivan didn't drive away. He didn't retreat. He drove at them. "You are insane!" Volkov screamed, fumbling with an armor-piercing shell. "You are driving into his gun. Trust the ice." Ivan gritted his teeth. The Tiger fired. Boom! Ivan slammed the left steering lever. The T-34 didn't turn. It slid. The tracks lost grip on the polished ice. The tank drifted sideways, rotating 45 degrees while still moving forward at 30 miles per hour. It was a controlled skid. The German shell screamed past their right flank, missing by inches. The German gunner had aimed for where the tank should have been, not where it was sliding to. The Tokyo drift, 1944 style. He missed. Sasha yelled. "Load! Fire! No!" Ivan shouted. "Too far. His armor is too thick. Hold fire." Ivan corrected the skid. He floored the accelerator. The T-34 was gaining speed. 35 miles per hour. 40 miles per hour. On ice, this was suicide speed. The Tiger was reloading. The German driver, realizing the Russian was closing the distance fast, tried to turn the heavy tank to keep its thick frontal armor facing the enemy. But 56 tons on ice does not turn quickly. The Tiger's tracks slipped. The heavy tank lurched, struggling for traction. Ivan saw it. The Tiger was clumsy. "Hang on!" Ivan shouted. He was 100 yards away now. The Tiger fired again. This time, the shell clipped the T-34's turret. Clang! The sound was like a church bell ringing inside their skulls. Sparks flew, but the rounded cast turret deflected the shot. They were alive. Ivan was now 50 yards away. He was driving straight at the Tiger's front plate. Ramming speed? Sasha asked, terrified.
No.
Spinning. At the last second, 20 yards from collision, Ivan locked the right track and floored the left. On dirt, this would have snapped the track. On ice, it turned the tank into a spinning top. The T-34 whipped around in a violent 360-degree spin. It drifted past the Tiger side to side, missing the German hull by less than a meter. For a split second, Ivan looked out his vision slit and saw the terrified eyes of the German driver through his own viewport. The drift carried the T-34 perfectly behind the Tiger. The German turret tried to rotate to follow them, but it was too slow. The T-34 stopped, its gun barrel practically touching the Tiger's rear engine exhaust. Now! Ivan screamed. Kill it! The execution. Sasha slammed the foot pedal. Wham! The 76mm gun fired point-blank into the Tiger's rear. The shell didn't need to penetrate thick armor here. It punched straight through the engine grills into the motor and into the fuel tanks. The Tiger shuddered. A second later, a column of fire erupted from the engine deck. The ammunition inside cooked off. Boom boom boom. The turret of the Tiger blew off, landing on the ice with a heavy thud. Target destroyed, Sasha cheered. Even Volkov was laughing hysterically, tears streaming down his face. Don't celebrate yet, Ivan said, shifting into reverse. Look up, the wrath from above. The two Tigers on the cliff edge had seen everything. They had watched their comrade get outmaneuvered by a crazy Ivan. They were furious, and now they were angry. They began to fire down into the canyon. High explosive shells rained down, shattering the ice around the T-34. The river was waking up. Crack. A massive fissure opened up under the burning wreck of the Tiger. The ice couldn't hold the heat and the weight. The burning German tank slipped, tilted, and plunged through the ice into the freezing black water below. The water surged up, flooding the ice sheet. The ice is breaking, Ivan yelled. We have to move. He spun the T-34 around. The canyon floor was becoming a slushy, deadly trap. Cracks were racing toward them faster than the tank could drive. Where do we go? Sasha yelled. Back up the waterfall? No, Ivan said, wrestling with the steering levers as the tank slid on the wet ice. We go deeper. He pointed the tank downriver toward a narrow rock archway. That archway leads to the swamp, Ivan said. The ground is solid there. But as they raced toward the arch, a shell from the ridge hit the cliff face directly above the exit. Rumble. Tons of rock and snow detached from the cliff. An avalanche. Faster, Ivan. Faster. Ivan pushed the pedal through the floor. The engine screamed in protest. The governor valve he had installed was glowing red hot. The rocks hit the ground just as the T-34 passed under the arch. Darkness swallowed them. Dust and snow filled the air. The rear of the tank was buried in rubble. The exit was sealed. The silent dark. Inside the tank, it was pitch black. The engine had stalled. Are we dead? Volkov asked again. Ivan coughed, waving the dust away. He flicked on the interior light. We are alive, Ivan said. But we are buried. Buried. Sasha looked at the periscope. It was black. We are trapped? With no air. The air intake is clear, Ivan said, checking the gauges. But the way back is blocked. So we wait for the Germans to dig us out and shoot us? Volkov panicked. No, Ivan said. He reached under his seat and pulled out a map. It was an old pre-war geological survey map he had stolen from a library in Kiev. He turned on a flashlight and pointed to a thin blue line. We are here, Ivan said. This isn't just a canyon. It's an old mining tunnel entrance. The river flows underground for 2 miles and comes out. Here, he pointed to a spot on the map, behind the German lines. You want to drive a tank? Underground? Sasha asked. Through a flooded mine? The Tigers are waiting above, Ivan said. The avalanche blocked the rear. The only way out is through the earth. Ivan patted the dashboard of the T-34. She's a fast tank, Ivan whispered. Now let's see if she's a submarine. He hit the starter. The engine roared. Load high explosive, Ivan ordered. We might meet some bats. He shifted into first gear and drove into the black abyss of the earth, leaving the daylight and the tigers behind. January 14th, 1944. The underground. The world was no longer white snow and gray sky. It was black stone and dirty water. T-34 number 203 was crawling through the bowel of the earth. The mine tunnel was barely wider than the tank itself. The steel fenders scraped against the rock walls, sending showers of sparks into the darkness that looked like fireworks. Screech. Watch the walls, Ivan, Sasha yelled, coughing in the thick diesel fumes. You're tearing the tracks off. I'm trying, Ivan shouted back. The floor is uneven. It's old railway ties. The water was rising. It was up to the floorboards now. Freezing, black sludge swirled around their boots. The V2 engine was sputtering. It needed air, and there wasn't much down here. Carbon monoxide, Lieutenant Volkov whispered, holding a rag to his face. We are going to fall asleep and never wake up. This is my tomb. Not today, Lieutenant, Ivan said. He reached back and adjusted the fuel mix again. The engine coughed, then roared. She likes the rich mix. She's a hungry girl. They drove for what felt like hours. In reality, it was 20 minutes. Suddenly, the tunnel widened. The water receded. Ahead, they saw a wooden barricade. And through the cracks in the wood, light. Electric light. We are at the exit, Ivan said. Load high explosive. What is on the other side? Sasha asked. I don't know. Ivan grinned, his teeth white against his oil-stained face. But I bet they aren't expecting a tank. The Jack-in-the-Box. January 14th. 1400 hours. German Rear Supply Depot, Nord. The German supply depot was a hive of activity. It was located in a quarry at the base of the mountains, the very mountains the T-34 had driven under. Trucks were being loaded with ammunition. Mechanics were repairing half-tracks. Soldiers were eating lunch, laughing, smoking cigarettes. They felt safe. The front line was 5 miles away. The Tigers were up on the ridge guarding the pass. Nothing could touch them here, except for the old, boarded-up mine entrance in the corner of the yard. Crash. The wooden boards exploded outward as if punched by a giant fist. Splinters the size of spears flew through the air. Out of the dust and darkness roared a green monster. T-34 number 203 launched itself out of the tunnel, landing on a stack of empty fuel drums. Crunch. The German soldiers froze. A sandwich dropped from a mechanic's mouth. For a second, nobody moved. It was impossible. A Soviet tank had just materialized out of solid rock. Then Ivan revved the engine. Surprise! Ivan yelled inside the hull. The fox in the henhouse. Fire at will! Volkov screamed, finally finding his courage. Boom! The 76mm gun fired a high-explosive shell directly into a parked ammo truck. The explosion was cataclysmic. The truck vaporized. A fireball rolled across the depot, engulfing a repair shed. Drive, Ivan. Drive! Ivan slammed the levers. The T-34 spun in place, its tracks tearing up the manicured gravel of the depot. He drove straight through a tent. He crushed a Kubelwagen Jeep flat as a pancake. The Germans were in panic mode. Officers were running, shouting orders. Soldiers were firing rifles at the tank, the bullets pinging uselessly off the sloped armor. Target left. Fuel dump, Sasha yelled. Boom! Another shell. A massive silo of diesel fuel erupted. Black smoke billowed into the sky, signaling to everyone for 10 miles that chaos had arrived. But Ivan wasn't just destroying the depot. He was looking for an exit. There. The main gate. The reunion. As they raced toward the gate, a shadow fell over them. On the ridge above the quarry, the 2 remaining Tiger tanks, the ones that had been hunting them earlier, saw the smoke. They looked down. They saw the dead Russian tank destroying their supplies. The German commander was apoplectic. Fire! Kill him! Kill the ghost! The Tigers rotated their guns down. Incoming! Sasha screamed. Wham! A shell from the ridge hit the ground right in front of Ivan, showering the vision slits with dirt. They have the angle on us, Ivan yelled. We need speed. Ivan reached for the governor valve again. He twisted it past the red line, past the danger line. He twisted it until the metal knob snapped off in his hand. Come on, darling, Ivan whispered to the engine. Don't die on me now. The engine screamed. It sounded like it was tearing itself apart. Pistons hammered like machine guns. Black smoke poured out of the exhaust so thick it created a smokescreen behind them. The T-34 shot forward like a dragster. 45 miles per hour. 50. They hit the wooden gate at full speed. Smash. The gate disintegrated. They were out on the open road. The final sprint. The road back to Soviet lines was straight and flat. But behind them, the Tigers were coming down the hill. And a tiger on a road is fast. They are gaining, Sasha yelled. Range 800 yards. I can't go any faster, Ivan shouted. The transmission is melting. The heat inside the driver's compartment was unbearable. The floor was burning Ivan's boots. The smell of burning rubber and oil was choking them. Boom! A shell landed behind them, shrapnel pinging off the rear armor. Ivan, Volkov said quietly, do something mechanical. Mechanical? Yes, you are the genius mechanic. Duatrik. Ivan looked at his control panel. He looked at the smoke ejector system. He looked at the extra diesel drum strapped to the rear deck, which was miraculously unpunctured. Sasha, Ivan said, traverse the turret to the rear. Load a high-explosive shell. To shoot the Tigers? No, Ivan smiled. Shoot the road. The road. Just do it. Aim 10 feet behind our tracks. Sasha swung the turret around. He aimed at the asphalt right behind their own tank. Fire! Boom! The shell exploded into the road surface. It blew a crater 5 feet deep. Asphalt and dirt flew into the air. Again. Fire! Boom! Another crater. The lead Tiger was racing at 30 miles per hour to catch them. Suddenly, the road disappeared. The German driver slammed on the brakes, but 56 tons doesn't stop instantly. The Tiger hit the first crater. The suspension bottomed out with a sickening crack. The tank bounced, slewed sideways, and hit the second crater. The track pin snapped. The massive steel track unraveled like a dead snake. The Tiger spun into the ditch, immobilized. The second Tiger had to stop to avoid crashing into the first. Ivan watched in the rearview mirror as the German tanks shrank into the distance. That, Ivan said, wiping sweat from his forehead, is how you fix a tailgater. The legend. January 14th, 1600 hours. Soviet lines. T-34 number 203 rolled into the Soviet camp. It didn't look like a tank anymore. It looked like a wreck. One fender was missing. The headlight hung by a wire. The paint was scorched. Smoke was still pouring from the engine vents. It stopped in front of the colonel's tent. The engine sputtered and finally died. It would never start again. The pistons had fused solid. Ivan popped the hatch. He climbed out. He was black from head to toe. The colonel walked out. He looked at the tank. He looked at the crew. Report, the colonel barked. Lieutenant Volkov climbed out. He stood tall. He looked at Ivan. Comrade Colonel, Volkov said. Driver Mechanic Sergeant Korolyov. Volkov paused. Ivan waited for the reprimand. He waited to be arrested for destroying the engine and unauthorized modifications. He successfully engaged 3 Tiger tanks, Volkov continued. Destroyed one, destroyed a supply depot, and brought the vehicle back. The colonel raised an eyebrow. 3 Tigers? With 1 T-34. Volkov smiled. Yes, Comrade Colonel. It seems the Germans have a problem with ice. Epilogue: The Flying Tank. Ivan Korolyov wasn't arrested. He was given a medal. And he was given a new tank, a T-34-85. But he made a few modifications to that one, too. The Germans never forgot T-34 number 203. In the mess halls of the Wehrmacht, survivors of the supply depot told the story of the ghost tank that lived underground and drove like a sports car. And back in the Gorky factory, engineers studied the wrecked engine of Ivan's tank. They couldn't understand how it had produced so much power without exploding. They found the little valve Ivan had installed, a crude, handmade piece of brass. One engineer held it up to the light. "What is this?" he asked. Another engineer shrugged. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it has spirit." The end.